Imagine you're a British soldier in May 1940, standing on a beach in France. Behind you, the English Channel. In front, the relentless German war machine. You're trapped, one of 400,000 men with nowhere left to go. This wasn't just a retreat, it was a desperate race against time, a strategic masterpiece disguised as a catastrophic defeat. History often remembers Dunkirk as a miracle, but the truth is far more complex and far more brilliant. The story begins with the swift and brutal German invasion of France and the Low Countries in May 1940. The Wehrmacht's blitzkrieg tactics were unlike anything the world had ever seen. Allied commanders, still fighting World War I style, were utterly unprepared. Their defensive lines crumbled, their communications shattered. The speed of the German advance was simply breathtaking. The British Expeditionary Force, or BEF, along with French, Belgian, and Dutch forces, found themselves outflanked and cut off. The German panzers sliced through the Ardennes, driving straight for the coast. This wasn't a slow, grinding trench war. This was a lightning strike. In just over 2 weeks, the entire Allied Northern Army was pushed back to a small pocket around the French port of Dunkirk. The situation was dire. With their backs to the sea, surrounded by a rapidly closing German cordon, the fate of hundreds of thousands of men hung by a thread. Surrender seemed inevitable. On May 20th, General Lord Gort, commander of the BEF, made a fateful decision. He realized that the only way to save his army was to abandon all heavy equipment and withdraw to the coast. This was not a popular choice. Abandoning equipment was a huge blow to morale and military capability. But Gort understood that men, not machines, were the ultimate resource. Churchill, Britain's new prime minister, had warned Parliament that we must expect a colossal military disaster. He was already preparing the nation for the worst. But then, a truly baffling event occurred. On May 24th, Hitler issued what became known as the Halt Order, stopping his panzer divisions just outside Dunkirk. For 3 crucial days, the German tanks paused. This unexpected reprieve was the narrow window that made the entire evacuation, codenamed Operation Dynamo, even remotely possible. Why did Hitler issue the Halt Order? Historians still debate this. Some suggest he wanted to conserve his tanks for the final push into France, or that he underestimated the British will to fight. Others believe it was Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe, who convinced Hitler that his air force could annihilate the trapped Allies from above, claiming all the glory for himself. Regardless of the reason, this pause bought the Allies invaluable time. Time to organize, to build makeshift jetties, and most importantly, time to reinforce the defensive perimeter around Dunkirk. This perimeter, a crescent-shaped line of defense, was held primarily by French and British rearguard troops. Their sacrifice was immense and often overshadowed by the miracle narrative. These soldiers fought with incredible bravery, holding back the advancing Germans inch by bloody inch. They knew they might not be evacuated, but their stand was vital for their comrades' escape. Operation Dynamo officially began on May 26th. The Royal Navy, under Admiral Bertram Ramsay, coordinated a massive rescue effort from the port of Dover. But the waters off Dunkirk were shallow, treacherous, and heavily mined. Large destroyers couldn't get close enough to the beaches. They needed smaller vessels. This is where the famous little ships come in. Fishing boats, pleasure yachts, paddle steamers, lifeboats. Any vessel that could float and carry men was pressed into service. These were not professional sailors for the most part. They were ordinary civilians, answering the call of their nation, braving enemy fire and the dangers of the Channel to rescue their countrymen. On the beaches, chaos reigned. Thousands of exhausted, starving men waited, sometimes for days, under constant aerial bombardment from the Luftwaffe. The Luftwaffe pounded the beaches and the ships relentlessly. The Royal Air Force, despite being heavily outnumbered, fought bravely to provide air cover, often flying multiple sorties a day. Many believed the Miracle of Dunkirk was solely due to these little ships. But the truth, as documented by official Admiralty reports for 1940, is more nuanced. While the little ships were vital for ferrying men from the beaches to larger vessels, the vast majority of soldiers, over 239,000, were evacuated by naval destroyers and larger merchant ships from the harbor mole. This mole, a narrow concrete breakwater, became a lifeline. Despite constant shelling and bombing, men marched along it, sometimes for hours, in an almost surreal procession towards safety. The discipline of the troops, under unimaginable pressure, was remarkable. Eyewitness accounts from naval officers, like Commander J.C. Clouston, speak of their calm and orderly conduct. The evacuation continued for 9 days, until June 4th. Each day brought fresh horrors and renewed determination. The perimeter held, but barely. By the end, over 338,000 Allied soldiers had been rescued. This included over 100,000 French troops, many of whom were immediately returned to fight in France. The cost was immense. Almost all the BEF's heavy equipment, tanks, artillery, vehicles, was left behind. The French rearguard suffered devastating losses, a sacrifice often overlooked. What we do not know precisely is the full psychological toll this ordeal took on the survivors. While records show many returned to fight, the hidden wounds of Dunkirk are harder to quantify. Also, the exact extent of Churchill's knowledge about Hitler's halt order remains a subject of speculation among historians. Was it pure luck, or did some intelligence play a role? We may never know for certain. Churchill famously called it a miracle of deliverance, but quickly cautioned that wars are not won by evacuations. He understood the strategic reality. Britain was still alone. But the myth that Dunkirk was purely a civilian effort, a spontaneous uprising of little ships, often overshadows the crucial roles of the Royal Navy and the RAF. The Navy moved the bulk of the men, and the RAF fought a brutal, unseen battle in the skies, protecting the evacuation routes. Their coordinated efforts were the backbone of Dynamo. Without the relentless air cover provided by the Spitfires and Hurricanes, the beaches would have been a slaughterhouse and the ships easy targets for the Luftwaffe. In his book, Dunkirk, Fight to the Last Man, Hugh Sebag-Montefiore details the heroic actions of the French First Army, who held the perimeter to the bitter end. Their sacrifice bought precious time, allowing more British and French soldiers to escape. Many of these French soldiers were captured or killed, their names largely unremembered outside of France. This massive rescue operation, while a defeat on paper, was a monumental psychological victory. It showed the world that Britain would not give up. The salvaged army became the core of Britain's defense against an impending German invasion. These experienced, albeit battered, troops were essential for the battles to come. Dunkirk taught a crucial lesson. Sometimes, the most brilliant strategy isn't about winning a battle, but about knowing when and how to retreat to fight another day. It cemented Churchill's leadership, rallied the British people, and provided a crucial moral boost when all seemed lost. This defeat fueled the spirit of resistance. The true brilliance of Dunkirk wasn't a miracle, but a combination of strategic foresight, immense sacrifice, and a stroke of incredible luck with Hitler's halt order. It was a testament to the fact that even in the darkest hours, human ingenuity and courage can snatch victory from the jaws of utter annihilation. The lessons from Dunkirk resonate even today in military strategy. The importance of flexible command, maintaining morale, and protecting your fighting force above all else. General Gort's decision to prioritize men over machines, though controversial, proved to be one of the most prescient strategic calls of the early war. The little ships captured the public imagination, embodying the spirit of a nation united in crisis, but they were part of a much larger, coordinated naval and air operation. The evacuation of Dunkirk remains a powerful symbol, not of defeat, but of an extraordinary escape that allowed Britain to continue the fight and eventually turn the tide of World War II. It was a moment where sheer will, combined with strategic brilliance and an unexpected pause from the enemy, forged survival against impossible odds. The greatest victories aren't always found on the battlefield. Sometimes they're forged in the crucible of a brilliant retreat.